Hello and welcome to a new Oxygen XML Live webinar. My name is Alim Belu and I will be your host for today's event, an event that marks the fifth webinar of our weekly series that is taking place every Wednesday. Now, before we start, I want you to do a little exercise with me. Picture a growing company. As it grows, so does the need for standardized procedures. And when new people join the company, they often need to be trained to follow existing procedures. Now, as you can see, a lot of time is spent in training sessions affecting your overall productivity. With this in mind, Bogdan Dumitru, software developer at Syncrosoft, will join me in a few minutes to explore Oxygen WebAuthor beyond technical documentation in order to show you how it can be of great help in instances just like the one that I mentioned. But before giving the floor to Bogdan, allow me to give you some useful information about today's webinar. Know that all of our events are being recorded and this one makes no difference. The recording will be made available on the event page on our site, oxygenxml.com, along with the slides and samples of Bogdan's presentation. And also the recording will be uploaded on our YouTube channel called Oxygen XML. Another important aspect is that as we go along, we wholeheartedly invite you to ask us questions by using the questions panel from the GoToWebinar interface. Christian Talou, project manager for Oxygen WebAuthor, and Mihaela Calotescu, senior developer in the WebAuthor team, will stand by to answer your questions in real time. With this being said, now I am ready to give the floor to Bogdan Dumitru. Hello, Bogdan.
Hello, Aline, and thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you everyone for being here with me. Explore WebAuthor beyond technical documentation. What is the idea behind this presentation? Well, I want to express the fact that WebAuthor can satisfy many use cases, not only the need for technical documentation. So it is not only a tool that you can use to write technical documentation. Okay, so let's take a look over today's agenda. We will start with contextual guidance, and you will see a few tips and tricks or a few features that may help new writers that join your team to be more productive and to require less to none training. Then instant validation may help those new colleagues to have instant validation to see that what they write is right or not. In the third section, Forms 2.0, I will show you how WebAuthor can be used to submit request forms. More precisely, how you can open a link and submit a paid time off request form. The next section, well-structured procedures, we show how WebAuthor can be used to keep track of a release procedure. And last, concurrent editing. I'll show you a glimpse of a new feature that will be released in the next version of WebAuthor, the version 23 that will be released next month and is about concurrent editing. Okay, let's move on. But before we begin, let's clarify what is WebAuthor, what actually is WebAuthor. WebAuthor is a web-based XML editing tool that allows you to edit XML documents right from your browser. So let's take a look. Sorry, not this tab. Here you can see WebAuthor. In the center is the main editing area, but you may notice that XML tags are not shown. Well, WebAuthor want to focus on the content, so users so that users when they want to write something, they doesn't require necessarily to know much about the XML syntax, and you can insert an element just by specifying the name for it. Okay, WebAuthor focuses on the content, but you can, if you know where to look, you can see the name of the element. For example, when I click somewhere, a tooltip that shows the element where the caret is in, and another hint comes from the breadcrumb from here that show the name of all elements from the row to the current element at focus. Okay. Another important thing about WebAuthor is that the application code is shared with the Oxygen XML author, the application for desktop. This lead to few advantages, let's say, because if you build a framework for a specific XML specification, it can work both in XML author and in XML web author. Besides that, you can write plugins based on the powerful Oxygen SDK that may work perfectly fine in both applications. Okay. About the interface of WebAuthor, you may notice few icons here. This is a toolbar, and the toolbar is configured in a framework. The framework is a place where you can configure all kind of things about a specific XML document. So you can configure how it looks, what actions is available for this for a specific document, and many other things. But I mentioned how it looks. The rendering of the XML documents is accomplished by using CSS. So you can change the style of an XML document like you will do for an HTML file, simply using CSS. Okay, now let's move on. Guidance. But why guidance is important? I think guidance is important because without contextual guidance, it will be like writing with pen on paper. You wouldn't have any advantage. Okay, but guidance, it might be too vague. So what exactly I'm referring to? Well, I'm referring to the guidance that an user may require when he comes in a situation that he doesn't know what element should be inserted in a specific context. Let's say that he or she wants to insert a new list item at the end of a list, and he or she doesn't know exactly what's the name of the list item element. It may be step, it may be list item, order, list, or many other element names. But WebAuthor can help you to focus on the content, not the structure, particularly in this case. Another question will be about what should I write inside this element? Well, WebAuthor can help you here WebAuthor can present some kind of placeholders for elements that are empty, and the placeholders can be configured to say anything, any hint you want. And last, if you have a very large document, then it will be pretty difficult to navigate from one section to another. Here, WebAuthor came in handy because it have an outline. Okay. The first quick question, what element should I insert in this context? Well, you can solve this question by configuring forum controls in your framework. A forum control is a visual component like a button or a text area or a combo box or radio button that is present in the XML page, and the users can use that components to edit the document, to insert an element or to insert a whole fragment, or they can invoke actions by pressing a button. Let's take a look. Oops, not this browser, this. Let's say that I want to insert a procedure right here. I press enter and the contextual menu is showed. Procedure. Now I tap enter. Oops, I double tap it. Okay, sorry. Now the element is inserted. You can see here the add step button. This button, if pressed, will insert a new step in the procedure element, like this. So, if a writer that doesn't know very well this XML, the elements in this XML specification in docbook, it will be easy for him to insert a new item without asking colleagues for help at every 5 minutes. Okay, but I can show you how the CSS code behind this button looks like. And it's not here, sorry. Oh, I think I forgot where I put the CSS file. Sorry, but this is an equivalent example. So you have a CSS rule like this that have an selector. The first line is the selector of the CSS rule. And for this example, the rule will apply only on the entry, only on the last child entry element within the row. And the content of the rule specifies that will show an oxy button. Oxy button is an extension, you may want, of the CSS specification that is supported only by Oxygen XML Author and Oxygen XML Web Author. And with this, you add a button that calls for an action. The action may be specified right here in the CSS file, or may be specified in the framework. Okay, this is a very little image over how flow controls can be configured. More about you can find in the customization guide. And the customization guide you can find on the oxygenxml.com under resources documentation, web author customization guide. Here you can search for form controls and you can see the first topic. The first topic details about all the existing form controls that web author supports, and if you click on a form control of a specific form control, you will see an example. Okay. Here I mentioned the contextual toolbar. What is a contextual toolbar? Well, is a toolbar that appears in the document when you select an element or a piece of text within an element. Let me show you. For example, if I select the right word, the contextual toolbar appears and it shows a few actions that can be seen on the main toolbar too. The first action is bold. If I press it, I can see now that my word right that was selected before is surrounded with the emphasis element. The contextual toolbar may be useful when a table row is selected, because it shows a few actions that are specific to the to this context when you have the whole row selected. For example, after I select the whole row by clicking this widget, I can see the actions and I can move the row up or down like this, or insert a new row up before or below the current current selected row. Okay, but I should mention that contextual toolbar is a feature that it wasn't released yet and will be part of the next version of WebAuthor 2023. Let's move on. But what if you don't know exactly what to write inside an empty element? In this case, you may configure WebAuthor to show a placeholder for that element. The placeholder is also configured through CSS. Let me show you an example. Sorry, here the text grayed out procedure step, fill it with a call for action, is actually a custom placeholder that should guide writers to write in a specific manner. And if I type something, you see that the placeholder disappear. Okay. And now, what if you have to navigate through a very large document? Well, you can use the outline that WebAuthor offers. The outline here is presented in the left side panel, and if I click this button, it will show. the outline have two view modes here. Now we are in the contents mode. The contents mode can be configured to show only a few set of all the elements within the document. And for a dogbook, we configured the contents mode more like a table of content to show only the sections within the document. And you can see if I click on the inline markup and image, my my editor will scroll right to that section like this. And if I click on the second section, it will scroll to the second section. Nothing too fancy. The other view of the outline is the structure view or the structure mode. And you can switch it by here. In this mode, you see all the elements. With blue, you see the element name, and with black, you see the text within that element. Okay. So I guess we answered this question too. Let's move on. Validation. Okay, new writers can easily write XML even if they doesn't know necessarily much about it. But do you have the guarantee that they respect the guidelines within your company or the rules? For example, you may have a rule in your company that no list item should end with a semicolon. If you have some kind of rule, you may want to use Schematron validation, because if you use Schematron, you can enforce those rules that if violated, it will produce a validation error that all authors will see. And let me show you how an validation error looks like. In a second. Okay, I will open the quick fixes sample, and you can see that many words are highlighted with a red or blue line. And if I open the validation side panel here, you can see many validation errors. So I won't have any excuse to commit an XML document that is not great according to the company rules or the team conventions, let's say. Schematron have a feature called Schematron Quick Fixes, where you can automatically fix the errors. For example, here we have an error that says that every link should start with HTTP. To fix it, I will have to go in the document and go to the attributes panel and edit that attribute, or I can simply click on this link and the attribute is updated and the error disappear. Okay. Now, forms. I said at the beginning that I will show you how WebAuthor can be used to submit a request form. But before I'll show you, let's talk a bit about why traditional forms are not ideal, let's say. Well, if you want to if you want your employees to submit a form via a web page, you may have to create a dedicated web application for that, maybe, or you may have to know HTML to create a web page with the forms. You may have to create a web server that process the request with the submission. You may have troubles to store the data, maybe security or another implications. And after you store the data, you may wonder how to process it, because because forms are really great to be automatically processed in some cases, maybe. But if you choose to use WebAuthor for this particular use case, you won't have many problems or headaches, because in WebAuthor input is highly customizable. You can create a framework for a particular form, and in that framework you can customize the page as you like. You can add every for control that you want. Let's say that you may want to add um, a text field or a combo box, forms that are also present in HTML. The main advantage is that you don't have to set up a specific special server for that. You can only you can only install WebAuthor, so you don't need a dedicated web server. And after submission, the forms will be automatically stored in an XML document that you define in advance. And this is great because XML can be automatically processed or transformed through XSLT. So in the use case that I proposed, the request for paid time off, you may automatically process the forms by validating or invalidating them based on the I don't know, maybe if a person doesn't have any days left, they cannot request for another one. uh, um, okay, let's show the demo. So how it works, I prepared a readme that contains a few links. Each link is supposed to create a specific form. Right when I open the link, the paid time off request form, the web author opens. It will create a new file, and it will create a new file somewhere, and I will have to fill it. And happily, my browser automatically completes some of the forms. And for the date, you can see that I have two form controls, two date pickers, one for the start of the interval and one for the end of the interval. So I want from this date to this date, and I can add another interval by clicking this button or remove. Now it's time to submit the form. To do this, you only have to save it. When I press Ctrl S, the commit dialog will be presented. Why this? Because the document, the XML document beneath, actually it will be committed on GitHub. So I have to write a commit message. Let's say I want some time off. Okay, commit was successfully, and I now can close the editor. Where the documents are saved or where the forms are submitted? Well, the link had two parameters, two URL parameters. One with the initial template that doesn't have any form field, and another called destination that points to a directory inside the request forms project on GitHub. And actually it's this directory to process. And you can see here, actually this is my form that I submitted before. You can see that was committed 1 minute ago with this commit message. And you can see the XML, the actual XML. Okay. What is great about having forms submitted on GitHub repository is that first of all, GitHub is secure, so you don't have to deal with security implications. And you can add another colleagues to this repository or project, colleagues that can process or contribute to the forms. Maybe you have another use case for another form that have to be completed from many people. Well, you can share the link before to each of the people that have to write something in the form, so they can collaborate very easily. Okay. So let's reiterate the advantages of submitting forms with WebAuthor. You don't need to create a dedicated application from scratch. So you can rely on WebAuthor. The forms are stored, the data filled in those forms are stored in XML. So is well structured. Forms can be filled by multiple colleagues, and last, they can easily be processed. Okay, let's move on. Another use case that WebAuthor fulfills is the use case or the need to manage a release procedure. A procedure is nothing more than a series of steps or tasks that have to be marked as done or completed by someone within a team or some particular person. Okay, so the actions order is important, and actions can be assigned to a particular person. A traditional approach to a release procedure will be to have it, let's say, on a wiki where everyone can edit the whole document. Well, having a release procedure on a wiki is not a really ideal, because you don't have no advantage over a regular whiteboard, because you don't can track who made a specific task done, who marked it as done, or one can write another's changes, because um, maybe because I haven't seen wikis that control that have a really good control over the race conditions, where to what I'm trying to say is you don't have the document within a wiki can be overwritten by two colleagues that edit the procedure in the same time. Okay. Let me show you how it looks, how the demo looks. Um, Sorry, not this repository. Okay. It is a template for the release procedure. It is simply a data map with a few topics inside. And I can go here on the display mode, view topic content, to see the topics expanded, because I've organized the topics by the time when the actions have to be finished. And the first topic contains the actions that have to be marked as done before the release day. The actions are grouped in a simple table that have 3 columns. The first column is the status. The status can be done or not done. The second is description, and the last one is assignee. The person who have to mark the task as done. Okay. So if I open a topic, you can see that after it loads, you can see that this button marked as done, when it's pressed, it will add a check icon. It's nothing too fancy, it's simple. But you may notice that some of the tasks are read only. I cannot mark them as done. But this is because for this use case, I've made it possible to make some parts of a document read only based off the GitHub team that I'm part of. Because in GitHub you can specify some teams, and for example, this organization, the greatest org, have 4 teams defined, and I can control whether the people from the QA team can edit in the document. And this is great because you don't want a colleague from a QA team to mark a task done, a task within the marketing team, for example. How was this possible? Well, when the document is loaded from the GitHub, another request is made, a request that asks for the teams that the current user is part of, and the the teams are set on the root element of the document as custom pseudo classes. A pseudo class is like a label on an element, a label that can be matched within a CSS selector, and you can add any rule you want. Let's say that you can add the rule for to make it read only, or you can add the rule to add extra information for the authors, or many other use cases. Okay, I can show you I can show you the CSS that sets that matches the pseudo classes. Sorry, not here. Here. You can see with you can see here that the rule oxy editable will make read only the elements that have the attribute audience set to QA, but en route will miss the team QA pseudo class. Another thing that I've made possible for all the people within the board team to edit any document within any element within the document by setting important. So if I'm in the board team, I can edit any element even if I am not in the team QA, for example. Okay. You may consider WebAuthor for keeping track or managing release procedures, because you may benefit from the track changes that the track changes feature of WebAuthor, that because in WebAuthor, you can turn a toggle called track changes, and every change made after that, it will be recorded. Another idea is to add facets to your documents, because WebAuthor allows you to specify additional CSS styles that can be toggled on or off in the browser. So you can create an additional style that will hide some parts of the document. Let's say the tasks or the tasks that are not supposed to be marked as done by you. Okay, let's move on. Concurrent editing. This is the feature that will come with the next version of WebAuthor next month. And now I want only to show a glimpse about this. Concurrent editing will enable to simultaneously edit the document with all of your colleagues without any limitations. So you can edit the same word, the same paragraph, or the same element. You can even insert structure within the XML document in the same time. This is without any locks, because locks can be frustrating, because if you want to edit something now and someone have a lock over the document, you may have to call that person and uh, tell him to leave the document so you can edit and insert what you want. Okay, let's see how it looks. I will put the editor side by side like this. Both editors are within the same concurrent session. So you can see a few colored carets. Well, those carets are for the co-authors. And you can see that each change made in the left editor is right away reflected on the right editor. And also you can see the selection of your colleague. Okay, I think that was the glimpse about this feature. Okay, that was all. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I hope I've inspired some of you to make the editing experience better. Aline, do we have any questions?
Yes, we have, and thank you, Bogdan, for presenting, and thanks to all of the kind audience members that asked questions during your presentation. So let's go through them and try to offer the people some answers. So, is data editing supported for WebAuthor?
Yes, of course. Data editing is one of the frameworks built in WebAuthor, and it have many features. You can reuse keys or reuse content in data. And also I can show you in the browser. This is a data document. You can see many data specific actions here. You can see the reuse content action or the insert data key. We have also a data map, and you can edit with the context where this topic in the map relies.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next question. Will the contextual toolbar be available in the regular software tool, meaning Oxygen XML editor?
In the Oxygen author for desktop?
Yes.
Of course, it will be present there too. And the configuration for the contextual toolbar, it will be at the framework level. So you can configure the actions presented in the contextual toolbar in one place for both Oxygen XML author and for Oxygen XML web author.
Let's go to the next question. Can a form be semi-automatically generated from an XSD?
I may take this one if it's okay with you.
Yes, please.
I'm George. Sorry, I was also trying to answer some questions, and the answer is that the form is basically controlled by CSS, and that CSS can be dynamically generated sometimes. And we actually do this exactly, generating the CSS to edit Saxon configuration files from the schema, from the XSD schema for those configuration files. So basically, we process the schema with an XSLT style sheet and generate the corresponding XSD file, CSS file that then provides form controls, hints, guidance to the user to define different content for that for the Saxon XSLT processor configuration files.
Thank you, George. Now, another question would be, what would I need to make StratML form available in WebAuthor?
So we developed StratML. StratML stands for Strategic Markup Language, and it's one of the XML vocabularies that we support. And the demo version of the WebAuthor already has StratML frameworks, and they are also available in the desktop version of Oxygen. So somebody opening a StratML file in the WebAuthor should be able to edit that, and actually the framework provides form controls, inline buttons, drop downs, and so on to help with that editing.
Thank you, George. Now, can I host the WebAuthor website on Windows environment, Bogdan?
Yes, you can. WebAuthor also offers a WAR archive that can be started up on Windows 2.
Thank you. The last question that we have actually. I have Oxygen XML Editor 21 Enterprise license. Is WebAuthor and Publisher Services are being a part of that package, or needs to be acquired separately?
Well, the WebAuthor, it's a different product. So Oxygen XML Editor, it's a license for our desktop tools, for our desktop tool, and that includes some of the publishing part when you trigger that from Oxygen XML Editor. So if you for instance, publish to data to web help, that's included there. Or if you want to use Oxygen XML chemistry to generate PDF, that's also part of, you can trigger transformations that use chemistry from Oxygen XML editor without an additional license. Now, if you want to use those publishing parts outside of Oxygen, we provide a separate license for these cases in the form of a web help license or Oxygen publishing engine or a chemistry license and so on. And the web author is a different product, so it has a different license available.
Thank you, George. So we just went through all of our audience's questions, and thank you all for sharing your involvement. And thank you, Bogdan, Christian, Mihaela, and George for helping us with the audience's questions. Let me take back control. Okay. Let me remind you that the event is being recorded, and you will find the recording along sample files and slides on the event page that I'm showing you right now. And if you have any comments or questions regarding the presentation, you can write to us directly by using the Oxygen feedback commenting platform found at the bottom of this same page. Now, before this event comes to an end, let me tell you a little bit about our upcoming event. Next week on November 4th, we will have introducing the Oxygen Publishing Engine for Data webinar. Now, this event will represent a crash course for you to learn what the Oxygen Publishing Engine is by showing you how to install it, configure it in a continuous integration system, and then customize the output. And more webinars will be added to this list, so make sure to check our events page, where you can also find the links to register for free. Now, reaching the end of our event, thank you again, Bogdan, for teaching us the various ways in which WebAuthor can be used to enhance our productivity. And thanks again to Christian, Mihaela, and George for helping us by answering our audience's questions.
And thank you everyone for attending.
So, thank you. Thank you everyone for taking part in today's live event, and I hope to see you next week, next Wednesday. So with this being said, goodbye.